Welcome to the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast. The world is changing faster than ever, and the world of education is too. Advances in psychology, biology, and a whole range of other fields have opened up new lines of thought about the purpose of school and how it can best serve a new generation of students. Join me on the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast every week to explore these new ideas. In last week's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dora Anya and Zoe Wong, who have been our nurses in residence from Toronto Metropolitan University here at Braemar College these past months. Welcome back to the Braemar Life Skills Academy podcast. My name is Mike. I'm hosting here in downtown Toronto at the sound studio at Braemar College. And today I am thrilled to be joined by three of our amazing Braemar students and, in fact, three of the longest serving students here at Braemar. Allow me to introduce Masha, Yammies, and Anya. They're going to tell you more about themselves. Masha, we're going to start with you. Tell us all about your life. Tell us about where it started, how it's moved, and how it ended up here. And then I'm going to move straight to Yammies and on to Anya after that.
I've been in Canada for about 2 years now. I moved here because I really wanted to study in Canada and to live here in future life. And I'm still standing by this choice. Mm-hmm. In Braemar, I'm a student leader. And that's pretty much it.
2 years in Canada, student leader. That's all we have to say about the life of Masha Vasilchuk?
I'd like to say more in advance.
Okay. Okay, we're going to keep the suspense going for a while. We'll learn more about Masha in the future. Yammies, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Yuli. People usually call me Yammies, and I'm from Vietnam. It's an honor for me to be a part of today's podcast episode. I'm real happy to share with you guys my experience when I first came to Canada. I have studied in Braemar since 2022. Oh no, I mean 2020. Yeah, it's been 3 years now. And yeah, I'm really happy to share my experience to you guys.
We are too. We can't wait. Anya, round us out. Tell us about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Anya, and I'm from Russia, and I study in Braemar since September 2021. I am also some kind of student leader, and yeah, I'm really into today's podcast, and I'm really excited how it's going to be.
Yeah. Me too. I'm excited because each of you has an experience that is unique for most people. Okay, less than 10% of all people have gone through what you've gone through, and so you're in a unique position to sort of give us, we say, some meat on the bones, or some stories, some relatable experiences that either agree or disagree with what a bunch of intellects, a bunch of academics have said are the stages of cultural adaptation. Okay, that's our focus today, the stages of cultural adaptation and what that looks like in real life. Because when I was teaching my first English second language courses, and I'm sure as you went through some of those courses early on in your time here, one of the units that we teach each of our ESL students is about cultural adaptation. And so you've probably seen these stages before, and we've talked a little bit about them in the lead up to this episode, but we want your stories. Okay, because most people, especially most young people, do not move from one distinct culture to an entirely different one and live full lives there. Okay, as you're surely aware, most people will maybe travel a bit. They'll spend a week here, a week there, maybe at the longest a month if they're doing some sort of language exchange or something. But very few people at your age move to a new place and live there full time for years. And each of you have done that, and if I may say so, have done so quite successfully. When we teach you, we talk about a honeymoon phase at the very beginning of cultural adaptation. We talk about culture shock being that second and probably most famous phase, the one that everybody gets very scared of. Then there's recovery or adjustment followed by adaptation and integration, and lastly, independence and autonomy. Okay, and so you've done some thinking about this. We want to start with a really general question, though, and just get your sense of it. What do we mean when we say culture? Because it's not the same thing as nation or identity. These are words that kind of get connected with it. But Masha, just your own general ideas. When I say culture to you, what am I talking about?
I think culture is more like what people are used to and the place that they've been raised in. I would call it the specific things that you can attach to yourself and to the people who was born in the same country with you, for example. And in each country it's different. For me, culture is more like the way of seeing things, the way of thinking. It's more like a mentality.
So what we're used to, I liked this phrase, what we attach to ourselves. When I ask, like, what am I? I'm a physical self, I'm an intellectual self, but I'm also attached to thousands of ideas and people and organizations and things like that. Yammies, your thoughts?
As Masha said, culture, there are several things about it, like behavior, belief, also like food, custom, clothes people wear is different depending on countries they live in. So I believe there are several things about it, like, yeah, that I said, behavior. Just give me a sec. I need to think.
Yeah. You nailed it. I'll tell you what some smart people have said in the past, and you actually overlap quite a bit with their definitions. But Anya, what do you think? What is culture to you?
I think culture is people, like vibe of all of them together, how, like the speed of their life, like also their trends, like clothes. It's also like a culture. Like you will not see what we have here in Canada, for example, in Russia, in Vietnam, in Philippines. Like culture, it's everything what people are making. Like
Yeah.
like.
And this is kind of the point, right? We've asked for definitions from three of you. You've given sort of your spontaneous definition, and all of you have been correct, and all of you have said something different, because it's we say a nebulous idea, which means it kind of, it's moving and changing, and it encompasses a lot of different things. There's a fellow named Raymond Williams who is kind of known as, at least in the West, as the father of cultural studies, which is a fairly new-ish field of philosophy. And he defined culture as culture is the complex and broad set of relationships, values, attitudes, and behaviors that bind a specific community consciously and unconsciously. Anya, like you said, it's a vibe, right? It's the pace that people live at. These are good words to kind of gather a definition around. And most importantly, they bring us together, right? They let us know who is kind of with us consciously and unconsciously. So you mentioned things like clothes and music and food. These are kind of conscious things. I see someone eating it's a tough example in Canada because we don't have very many great foods to our name, but let's say poutine. It's the one that everyone knows. If I see someone eating poutine and I'm somewhere off in the middle of Europe, I have something to talk to that person about right away. I go, "Are you from Canada?" Right? It's same with any other aspect of culture. If I see someone dressed in a way that I recognize, or practicing a certain belief that I recognize, or maybe talking about politics in a way that I recognize, there's endless ways we could define culture. But it is distinct, it is recognizable, and it is how we kind of define ourselves or identify others and ourselves. So when we move to a new culture, as you have done, all of a sudden we're in a place where, especially those conscious parts of culture, those things that we have attached to ourselves, are no longer that present, right? We don't see tons of examples of them. And so today our primary topic is what happens to the self, what happens to me, when I am no longer surrounded by recognizable culture. Okay? Our instinct might be to think, when we are taken out of familiarity and put somewhere which is unfamiliar, unrecognizable, in some cases scary or even disgusting, we would think that the first reaction would be negative. But all the smart folks, all these different websites that I went and looked up when I was teaching ESL that talk about the stages of cultural adaptation say that the first stage is a honeymoon phase, right? You guys know what a honeymoon is, right? It's like this small ideal period. It's beautiful. Everything's glowing with light. It's romantic and exciting and adventurous and fulfilling and all of that. What the heck? Right? It's supposed to be scary and unfamiliar. Yammies, I'm going to jump right in with you. What was the honeymoon phase like for you when you first moved here? I know it was about 3 years ago, but do you remember feeling like, was it a lot of positivity and goodness, or did you sort of disagree with that honeymoon assessment?
Well, the first day I came to Canada, I expect a lot from this country. But yeah, I expect it's gonna be really beautiful. It's actually beautiful, but when the winters come, yeah, it's the biggest challenge for me when I'm come from a warmer climate country, and yeah, I remember the first day I came here, I just sick because I have it's really cold that I cannot handle it. So yeah, it just like slapped to my face when the winter is just like that. You know, because I come from Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, where the weather is only have rainy and sunny, and here we have four seasons.
At least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I remember the day I came here is on January, and yeah, that day was winters, snowy everywhere. It's the first time I saw snow that much as well.
So the biggest difference that stands out to you, and it's not surprising for someone who comes from Vietnam, where tell me, do you know what the coldest and what the hottest weather would be like in Vietnam?
In Ho Chi Minh City, the weather is like 40 Celsius. Yeah, like, and it's from morning to the afternoon, it's gonna really hot, and then in the afternoon to evening, it's gonna be rainy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a rainy season and a dry season.
Yeah.
Right. So you're a more equatorial country. Yeah. We can talk about culture and all the differences between it, but perhaps one of the most obvious parts of our lives is the atmosphere we live in. And when you move from a place that's one of the hotter places on the planet to a place that is almost like stereotypically cold, right? Like when you see depictions of Canada on TV or in movies, a lot of igloos, a lot of polar bears, right? Like a lot of vast white, right, plains. There's not a lot of like summer vibes, docks, and sunglasses in the way we portray Canada. And so you were kind of like smacked right in the face by January Canada. I'm not surprised that that's the thing that stands out to you. But no real honeymoon, right? You kind of got thrown right into it, and it was shocking.
Yeah. It's a developed country, so it's a lot of beautiful things, a lot of beautiful building that I have never seen before. And yeah, people here are really nice as well. When I come here, they help me a lot when I go to the way to my school. And I'm really happy to meet my homestay mother. She's really nice with me. Yeah.
Cool. So a lot of positive interpersonal relationship stuff, despite the miserable weather. Cool. Anya, do you remember your first maybe couple weeks here in Toronto? Was it a honeymoon?
No, okay. Actually, I remember it really, really good because it was, I think, the most dramatic feeling that I felt in my life. And I didn't have any honeymoon. Honeymoon. Okay. Firstly, because I was late. Like, I started my studying in Braemar in September 7, but I came to Canada only like in the end, like 25 of September. And because of this, I think I skipped this important period as orientation day, and I didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself to school and country on the same level as other new students did. You know, like, because now I'm student leader and I helped Mr. Helsby to do orientation day. I saw how all those new students, they connected together, and after that, all those months, they're always together. I didn't have it because I skipped that important day as orientation day. And why I think I didn't have honeymoon, also because first day I was late, and because after I was late, I had a quarantine for 2 weeks in the homestay that I hated a lot. And it was like a loneliness in that really depressing room, you know, like I didn't enjoy it a lot. And I cried a lot. I didn't sleep because I had a deadline. Okay, I couldn't just sleep. And during the quarantine, so I continued studying online in Zoom, and I saw all those students during the break because some of them forgot to mute themselves, and like I heard how fun their lives, and like I was so like not into anything. I wanted to go home. My mother was also like totally fine to buy me all tickets and take me back because she was worried for me, but yeah. I don't think it was really nice, and it wasn't honeymoon, but it was okay. I learned.
Well, it sounds very difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised. Of course, you came to us during the COVID period, and so in some senses, you didn't even get to encounter a new culture. You kind of got thrown into a cultural void at first, right? Literally stuck in a room by yourself for 2 weeks. And I think most of us during COVID kind of very quickly learned what fundamental things we need just to sort of stay okay, just to be well, by sitting in a room by ourselves for a few weeks, right? You very quickly realize, oh, I need other people, I need sunlight, I need exercise, right? I need to go for walks. I used to think that those things were kind of just like small, but now I realize they're incredibly important, right? And the number of people who learned things like how to cook or how to play an instrument or how to, do photography or do coding, we all very quickly were like, I need intellectual stimulation, I need challenge, I need relationships. It was a great teacher, but it's definitely not a great way to get to know a new culture.
Nope.
Right? Come here and sit in a room by yourself. So we can kind of infer some things by absences there, but you were, I'm glad that I know what your most recent 2 years have been like, and you have integrated here and you've become such a vibrant part of our school, but yeah, not a great honeymoon.
No.
Masha, do you want to finish this off? What was that period like for you?
Oh, for me it was good actually. I actually had a honeymoon.
Oh, thank goodness we have a honeymoon.
Yeah. But I came at the same time as Anya, but I came in the end of August, so I had my 2 weeks of quarantine as well because it was COVID time. But I had a roommate and 2 roommates. So we were pretty okay. We also came all in the same time. We were all in the quarantine, 3 of us sitting there. So we were a little bit going crazy, but it was fun, at least, because it was not only me by myself.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first orientation day, I was scared, a little bit excited very much. But the honeymoon for me started from the Toronto Island that we went. Like, it was in the beginning of school, I guess 2 weeks from school, it was 18th September, and I went to Toronto Island with the whole Braemar, and that's where I got to know a lot of people, and they became my friends back at the time. And yeah, after that I had a very good honeymoon, at least the winter came, in fact. So, yeah, it was good for me.
So I just want to mine down a little bit into that idea. You had a couple people to go through the crazy quarantine with you, which is huge. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what relationships do for us in our lives later on today. But after that period, the thing that you remember sort of like the starting gun or the thing that sparked your enjoyment in this place was a trip to Toronto Island. Talk about that day. Talk about your memories and maybe what you remember feeling and why. Like we want to draw some conclusions about what other people could do when they move to a new place to get that same feeling. So what was it about that trip that did it for you?
As I remember, like I said, it was 2 weeks, and during these 2 weeks I got to know a little bit people like in my class, and during the lunchtime, during the breaks, we also talked a little bit. So I didn't really have like friends already at the time, only my roommates, but still I was more integrated in the environment of school. That's why when we went to Toronto Island, for me it was wonderful because we started playing volleyball, and team building during this play is also like very good because you got to know people who you play with and you interact with them for like hours. So you get to know each other, you became friends with them. And yeah, I remember after the Toronto Island, not after, after the school time finished, like, and Mr. Helsby left, we stayed there with the company until the night time, and also after that went to around the city, like in Toronto, for walk. I believe it was the first time I was hanging out with like a company of friends, and after that we were doing it like pretty much every few days. And I think people who are around you and the friends that they got there, it's like the most important for the honeymoon stage, because you can't, well, I can't be alone and be happy because you feel sad, you feel lonely, as Anya said, because you don't know nobody. But if you have people who are around you, and like most of them are new and they don't know what's going on either, and you just exploring everything like together, seeing where can you go, where can you like find some cool places to drink Starbucks or stuff like this. I think that's when it started. And yeah, it was the Toronto Island for me.
I'm so glad. I obviously those are some of our most enjoyable trips. We love getting out there. It's easy to let your guard down and be in a place of joy when you're on the beach in the sunshine, playing volleyball, going on bike rides, being around big trees and nice water. Something about nature and that kind of friendship in those places really, enlivens the soul. 2 ideas strike me from your account. The first is that when we talk about cultural adaptation, there's kind of like a graph that a lot of intellectuals use. You may even recognize this, but basically if you think of like the y-axis as being your level of comfort, right, from very uncomfortable to perfectly at home, and then of course x is across time, cultural integration or cultural adaptation is supposed to go something like pretty high, like pretty comfortable, and that's the honeymoon, and then you're supposed to experience this big drop, and that's the shock, right, the crisis. Then there's a recovery, adaptation, and then independence ends up being even higher than that original honeymoon comfort level. But it occurs to me from your account that the strategies, whether they're conscious or unconscious, that we use to make a place home or make a place feel safe and comfortable are the same whether you're at the very beginning of your journey and you're kind of a tourist, or you're pulling yourself out of that crisis and that culture shock and moving back. They look around the same level of comfort, and the strategies are very much the same. So what you described is typically called networking and mapping, right? You literally went right into a sort of explore phase where you grabbed a whole bunch of other people for whom it was normal to be uncomfortable, right? So you're all sympathizing with one another, and then you started to map the city together, right? And you built your network that way. No therapist in the world, I don't know if there are cultural integration specialists, but no doctor, no specialist could have told you to do a better thing than what you did. Very, very wise, right? A lot of educators and people who think about especially the position of international students will talk about building networks of resilience. You guys heard that word before? Resilience. So being resilient means you can take a hit from life, something can go wrong, you get hit and you can bounce back, right? You can remain stable, reliable, healthy, all of those things. That's resilience. The more resilient you are, the harder a hit you can take. And sometimes life hits us really hard. Changing cultures is a big hit for a lot of people. Homesickness, not having all those familiar things that we love around us, that's a big hit. What resilience really is, it looks like psychologically, is being connected to a whole bunch of other stable things. right? If you imagine having kind of like if you fall off of the high wire rope in a circus and you land on that really soft net, and that net sort of springs down and then bounces you back up, it does that because it's connected to all these different points, right? So it can absorb that challenge. You literally connected yourself with people who were in the same situation as you in nature, and then started forming network connections with your physical setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bravo. Brilliant. I don't know if you knew what you were doing, but
I think I just happened to be in a good company, and it also there were also people previous who've been in Braemar who also helped to like explore the city more, I would say, to like show the places.
well, you got good instincts. Well done. We want to move on to the most famous aspect of cultural adaptation, and this is something that is felt, I think, by everyone at some point in life, whether it's a new stage in their life or a completely new culture. Yammies, you moved from Ho Chi Minh City to Toronto. I think we can agree they're both big, dense cities, and we do have a pretty strong Vietnamese community here in Toronto, but there are a lot of differences between those two places, right? The weather is an obvious one, but there's many others. Did you feel shocked when you arrived here? The assessment of culture shock is that it is accompanied by anxiety, surprise, disorientation, and confusion, and it can even combine those feelings with strong feelings of either moral or sort of sensory disgust, like being disgusted with things that you've never seen or heard before. Does any of that ring true from your life? Do you remember feeling shocked?
Yeah, of course I do, and I believe every international student who came here from Vietnam to here will have the culture shock as me. So in Vietnam, like there's easier for us to move everywhere we want because we have motorbike and we can use it to move anywhere we want to go. But in here, it's different for us. Like we have to take a bus, subway, and it takes much more time to go to the place we want. So yeah, it's a big difference when people here usually use public transportation, and car, but in Vietnam we usually use motorbike. Yeah, and yeah, another like anxiety that's happened to me is when I have French class. Yeah, it's already 9, and it's really difficult for me because I need to learn English and French at the same time. At that time I had a really bad grade in French class. Yeah, because I listening to English, because I need to translate in Vietnamese to English and into French to make sure I understand what is going on in class. And yeah, it's really difficult for me because I need to learn multiple language at the same time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more the difficult one when I have study in Braemar.
Yeah,
the most difficult course when I was grade 9.
Because you've been here for a while, and I have quite a lot of interaction with your teachers, I know what kind of a quality student you are, but that must have been like mentally exhausting. Learning, as you just said, kind of not just having to do the work of translating from your native language, Vietnamese, to English, and then, let's say, solving problems in English, but then having to do all of that into a third language, which you were just at the beginning of, right, in French, and solving problems in that. Do you remember how you felt physically while you were, doing this very exhausting thing?
I remember that I take really long time to get what I want to do, and yeah, it took a lot of time to study French. Yeah, I need to study much more than everyone else in class because it's the beginning of my life in Canada, so it's really difficult for me to learn English as well. So yeah, it takes much more time for me, and yeah, I didn't sleep that much at all because I need to learn a lot from that class. So
yeah, I can imagine, and it's so impressive that you did that, but in some ways I'm sorry that you had to, because it's hard enough to adapt to a culture, right? It's hard enough just to go somewhere as a tourist and just make your way around and feel safe and get something fulfilling out of it. But all three of you are engaged in your real lives, right? You're trying to move forward in a period of great change no matter where you are. When you're a teenager, you're going through changes every day, right? Social, physical, emotional, whatever. And then you add language and travel and weather and new residents, right? New homestay parents, new food. Oh, even just talking about it makes me like a little stressed. Anya, I want to move to you. Just kind of same question. Do you remember not just the experiences, but the feelings of shock when you got here?
Because I was fighting with myself every day, because I had a chance to just leave Canada or to be over everything and to try to just like write down all reasons why I want to stay here. And this I was confused, like, because I needed to make a decision that will change my future, because it's a really big change after you decided to go to study abroad, and then after study abroad you are thinking, oh, should I stay abroad or I should go back? And yeah, it was really, really difficult, but I'm really happy that I had my family and I had my friends back to Russia, and all of them helped me. But it was also difficult that here my goal was to find people, international people, and to talk with them here in English only. But I wasn't lucky, and no, I actually was lucky because she helped me a lot, but the point was that she was from Russia, and first 4 months I was speaking Russian all the time.
This was one of your first friends.
Yes. And my English was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. With Masha,
you remember?
we connected with Masha in December, and she had another friend from Germany, and when we were communicating together, I was saying something in Russian to Masha, and she was trying to explain to this German friend what I want to say, because I couldn't. And that was the point, I was confused, I didn't know the language, I was fighting with myself. And yeah, I was looking for myself. I didn't find the reason why I'm here. And yeah, I wasn't happy, but everything worked well. And here I am doing podcast.
Yeah, here you are, speaking beautiful English.
Thank
We're
you.
surrounded by friends from tons of different countries. Yeah, thriving, one might say. We're going to come back to a couple of pieces of advice that I think you gave very subtly there, because we want to talk to people about how they pull out of this shock phase and get themselves back to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way you framed that as you were fighting with yourself and trying to find yourself. Right? These are beautiful and accurate expressions for what we feel. Right? Of course, we're always in our bodies, right? But sometimes it does feel like we left ourselves behind, or we lost ourselves somewhere. What you were describing also made me think of running, or where you're pretty much, you're in a race. Let's say you're going 5 or 10K or a marathon, and yeah, you're running against other people, but you're mostly just competing with yourself, right? It's a very internal battle. And when we start a race, we can feel all of this giddy excitement, oh, I'm such a good, healthy person, take my picture, I'm going to run this race, I'm going to get a nice medal, blah, blah. And then you get halfway into the race and your body hurts, right? And you're having trouble breathing, and maybe you start getting cramps, or some, your knee starts to bug you, and you start to have all these good reasons to stop, right? And you're fighting with yourself, right, to get through to that more beautiful place. So you've run the race very, very well, Anya.
Thank you.
And we want to talk about how to do that now. How do we run the race well? How do we find ourselves in a new place? There are some suggestions provided by all these smart folks out there on the internet for easing the transition. You've mentioned a couple of them already. I'll just get us started, but I'd love to hear what worked for you. Keeping in touch with your home country. Anya, you mentioned your family helped, friends back home helped, right? Just kind of reassuring ourselves every day. Everybody's still back there, right? That home, that solid thing is still there. Whew, I can move on. basic physical health, right? Like we underestimate how much either poor eating or poor sleeping. Yammies, you were talking about, the mental exhaustion and the stress of school creating a situation where you weren't sleeping very well. That can have all kinds of other negative effects on our mood, on our, our ability even to move well and to think well. So taking care of physical health. Improving English skills, right? Getting better and better at recognizing signals and phrases and words that are being spoken, feeling comfortable going up to someone on the TTC and asking for directions, or someone at the grocery store, right? And being able to communicate in that way. And finally, realizing or reminding yourself that what you are going through is normal, right? Because it doesn't feel that way. Everything in your body is telling you every day, threat, alert, right? This is weird. I don't like this. I'm not used to it. And you have to, I loved, Anya, you said you wrote about it, right? You wrote down reasons for staying. Almost like what you have to do while you're racing, right? You have to remind yourself, I'm here for a reason. I chose to do this. These are the benefits I'm going to get, even though it feels awful right now. Masha, that's what the internet has to tell us. That's what the big smarty pants want to say. Let's get the real experience. What were the things? Toronto Island was early for you, but you've been here for a good couple of years now.
Yeah.
What are the forces, the people, the events, the stuff that have moved you from discomfort to comfort?
Honestly, I think after Yammies and Anya's stories, I didn't really had this much cultural shock. I didn't have that much problems. Maybe that's because I was prepared when I was coming here. It was my second time. Before staying here for a long time, before staying here for years of my education, I came here before that just to try out and see the Toronto for a month, just to figure out for myself if I want to stay here or no. Maybe that helped, because I remember the first time I came here, I was actually 12 years old.
Wow.
And that was a cultural shock for me. It was back then, because I didn't know what to expect.
And so I think we need to be really, really clear about the stuff that has worked for yourselves, because you're on the front lines. You've experienced this. So Yammies, coming back to you, do you have any advice or strategies that kind of helped you pull out of that period when the weather sucked and it was really hard learning English and French, and you were having trouble sleeping, all of those things which are very normal in that culture shock period? What were the activities or the support you received that moved you on that path to recovery and adaptation?
So I feel like I'm lucky to have a really nice homestay mother. She's helped me a lot because she's also Asian. So her food, her dishes is pretty much with me as well. So I'm not really bad at eating, not have a bad eating habit. And at that time, I also have a really nice roommate. She also a Vietnamese. And yeah, during the COVID, I spend most of my time with her in the house, to eating, learning, and talking a lot about ourselves. And we spend pretty good time with each other during the COVID, so I'm not feel really bad at all that time. And about French class, I write down a lot of stuff that I don't understand, and because that time I have an online class, so it's a bit difficult for me to connect with the teacher. But I remember I studied with Miss Bo. Yeah, she's really nice. So it's much easier for me
Shout out to Miss Bo, yeah.
to have the French class. So I over that course, and yeah, it's not that bad when at the beginning, but I learned something about French as well. So yeah, it's like when I see back, I feel like, oh, I overcome it, and it's not that hard when I used to it. So, and about the weather, it just self-change, because weather is will not change. It's still cold and no storm a lot outside. So I just adapt to it, wear much more quiet clothes when going outside and get used to it. And I like snow as well. When it's just new, not when it's getting dirty. it's from white to dark color. I don't like it at all, but
Nobody does.
yeah, and that's everything. I get used to it, and when I look it back, I feel like, oh, it's a really great experience when I overcome all of it, and yeah.
Yeah. The one piece of advice I mentioned earlier, which was keeping in touch with your home country, I think the first thing that comes to mind when we say that is calling home, right? Like Zooming or FaceTiming with people that you love back home. But another way that we stay in touch with our home country is by engaging with examples of it or instances of its culture where we can find them here, whether that's finding people who are from our home country here or just finding food that is similar or connecting with someone in your support network like a homestay mother or a teacher or a counselor or whoever else is able to give you that kind of informed support. That's how we reconnect or stay connected with that home culture as well. It can be done even in the new place. Anya, you mentioned a couple pieces of advice earlier, but I'm going to maybe get you to elaborate a little bit on them. I loved your idea, as I mentioned, of writing down reasons for staying. I think that journaling is beneficial in a whole bunch of really sneaky, subtle ways in a bunch of different parts of life. But what else would you say worked for you? Like I see you now, and you and Masha are both student leaders. You're people here who have become, I think, connectors for others, right? You're not just connected yourself now. Now you're in that, I think, that final phase, that independence phase where you could live here now, right? You would be perfectly comfortable living in Toronto for the rest of your life, I think, and new people could come and you would be a wonderful ambassador. So how'd you get there? Give us the steps. Give us the blueprint.
Okay. I think what can help to follow your goals, because, I had a goal to learn English, to communicate with people from another countries. I don't have anything against Russian people because I'm a Russian person. Like, what stupid.
I have.
Okay, so what helped me is just I followed my goal. I found the group of international students. There was Masha, but because there were other people, we couldn't speak Russian between each other. And also, what helped me, personally, I went for the holiday, for Christmas, to Russia back. And helped me a lot because I compared again. After Canada, I came back to Russia, and after Russia, I came back to Canada. And this just showed me that here life is better, and I like it. I enjoy it much more. And yeah, after that, it was all weight from my shoulders. Learned a lot, and it changed something inside. Yeah, maybe some fundamentals. I just changed the view, I changed my action, everything, behavior. And that's why before, in the start of Canada, I was I will get used to this homestay. It's my fault, because I'm actually a picky eater. It's not about the homestay, just about how different people...
They need different things.
Conditions.
Like puzzle pieces.
Yes. And yeah, I found people that showed me world from the different side. I changed my place. I had a break in Russia. I compared everything, and it's my personal things that helped me to stay in Canada, to be happy and enjoy being here.
It's not just very wise and intelligent answer, but your joy, your satisfaction with this process comes through when you talk about these things. You can tell how much it's meant.
Yes.
You said something changed in you personally on a very deep level, and that really, you can't hide that when that change happens. When you talk to other people, there's all these subtle ways that we know how each other's doing, and I can, if I may, I can tell how much better it is. Yes. Now for you. I can tell the relief and the pride that's come with that, and very well earned.
Also some, for example, my first teacher in Braemar, it was Miss Flora. I love her a lot. And after that I had her only one more time, but after I found my people, and when we started communicate more, she was wow, like you changed so much. Like maybe Canada helped you, maybe someone helped you, but like you're so different.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit proud because I don't know. I'm more open. I'm more confident. I'm more like happy. Like even Masha's friend Mark, he's always saying like I'm the person who doesn't want to be in conflicts, that wants to make everyone happy. And I think this description is really good. Like I like how people see me, describe, and yeah, Miss Paul says the same. Mr. Dansmo, I love him a lot. Like all of them see those that difference between me back in the start of Canada and now, and I'm happy.
The kindest person I know.
Yeah, it's quite a testimony.
Thank you.
I have some theory about the change that's happened in you, but I want to ask, I guess, to start. Masha, you and Anya have known each other for a good little while now, and you've played roles in each other's lives so intensely that you switched homestays at one point. You share quite a lot of overlap in your friend group. You're both student leaders. Have you seen that change in Anya, and do you have any idea what has happened?
Yeah, I remember when I just met her, she was like closed and shy, and like she didn't know a lot of people. Yeah, quiet. But right now, yeah, of course you're happy. You look happy. You act happy. But I also, maybe I didn't notice it before, but when we were playing Mafia, remember, like a few days ago.
Okay.
I really liked like you can stand for yourself now.
Yes.
Like she can really like confident and
Protect.
yeah, protect yourself, because
Kind of.
maybe what I remember used to be more like just when somebody says something wrong, just like whatever. But now she's like no.
You can advocate for yourself now.
Yes.
Yeah. So self-advocacy is one of the primary markers of the final stage of cultural adaptation, that independence and autonomy stage. It's literally the only thing written under the description when I teach this cultural adaptation thing, or this model. The idea that you no longer have to look to somebody else or to a resource or an object or a service that will support you or advocate for you. You can say, no, I got this. Right? I'm enough for me. I like me. I know me, and me is enough to get through this situation. There's literally the very first podcast we ever did here was with this fella, Mr. Dov Shapiro, who is the CEO of Connect You. And I think each of you has probably had some contact with Connect You. I know we've been doing it with our student council this year. Listeners can check out the Connect You episode. It's the very first one on our list. But he's big on this thinker named Dr. Carol Dweck, who talks about the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. And this is something like a major internal change that happens with us, with many people. It requires a few specific supports at first. But basically, it's the move from a mental state that says, I'm kind of a victim of this world. Things happen to me that I can't control. Oh, I did poorly on that test. Well, I'm just not very smart. I'm not very good at this subject. The teacher doesn't like me. I'm not in charge here. That's a fixed mindset. The growth mindset is one that says, I'm capable of change. I'm going to meet challenges and I won't always succeed, but I can learn and I can approach them again next time better. Oh, I didn't do very well on this test. Maybe there's some things I can fix with my process, right? Maybe I can change my study habits. Maybe I can communicate a little bit more with my teacher. I know I'm going to go ask for a bit of help, right? I'm going to set a new study schedule. Sure enough, you show up at the next test and your grade is improved because you feel like you have some control over your own results, right? Over your own processes. I think, Anya, you've moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Often a symptom of a fixed mindset might be what you just described, Masha, that kind of quietness, a shyness, an inability to advocate for self, right? The growth mindset is one that says, I'm worthwhile, right? I have value in this place, and my ideas are important, and I'm going to continue to develop them. Yammies, coming back to you, you also, I think, described a similar process, which relates to something called that we might think of as a motivation cycle, where it's really hard to be motivated to do something if you've never done it before and you don't know what it's going to feel like and you have no idea what the results are going to be, right? Your brain just doesn't have any models for it, so it can't be like, yeah, go do it, or no, don't do it. We need to experience success at least once before our brains will recognize the next challenge and say, ooh, yeah, go do that thing. Because remember when we felt that success before? That was a good feeling, right? It's a very simple model, but that's literally how this neurochemical dopamine works in your brain, right? I don't know, you've swung the baseball bat the same way before, you hit a home run, right, with that swing, and so you are motivated to go back to the plate and swing again, right? If you've never hit a home run, it's hard to be motivated to do it. If you've never been in a French class before, it's hard to be motivated when that challenge hits. But once you experienced just that little bit of success, which, Yammies, do you remember any, like, the first instances of success or the first time you were like, hey, I can do this? Are there any moments like that in your memory?
Yes, I have several times to feel that way. Like, I'm proud of myself as well. Like, same as Anya. I used to be a really shy and quiet person. I never talk to new person or stranger because it makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, over time I experienced a lot of things from everyone around me. I feel like I need to be more confident and need to talk to everyone else to gain more, knowledge or happier things. So yeah, I become more confident and open mind more because there's a lot of new thing I need to explore. Like when I received the invitation from this podcast, I was nervous as well. I was like, whoa, this is new. I have never do it before. Should I try or something? I think about it several times, and yeah, I decide I'm sitting here right now.
Yeah, you sure did. What if I'd given you that invitation 2 years ago? What do you think you would have done?
At that time, I think I feel maybe like I'm not really good at all. Like, can I do it or not? Because I feel like my English is not that good if I talk to everyone else to share my experience to everyone. So maybe I will think several times about it. Yeah, but in a negative way more than right now. Right now, I think in more positive way. Like, I can tell my friends like, oh, you know what? I have in the podcast in school. It sounds really cool when you say it to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you can share it with your family and your friends and everyone you know. Right. Yeah. And that you'll have this marker for the rest of your life of your progress. Right? Even this experience right now is building motivation for the next challenge for us, right? We said before we started this episode, a couple of us were feeling a little nervous, right? Heart's racing a bit, feeling a little sweaty and uncomfortable, can't remember the right words, right? This is all very normal. The next time you meet a challenge that's in any way similar to this, you're going to also have something inside you that feels like, let's go, let's get it, right? Let's do this, I'm excited as well. And that feeling can only grow, right? The more challenges you meet, the more times that you step up and say, I'm enough, right? I have value, my ideas are worthwhile. Let's see what happens, right? It's a funny thing. We tend to think about ourselves as being pretty stable, like life sort of goes like this along a single line, and maybe you make an improvement or you make a bad decision and it goes like that. What's pretty clear from most psychological research is that there's no such thing. Yeah, you remember? There's no such thing as staying stable, right? We are, like the rest of life, we are moving in waves and cycles, right? There's nothing in this world that doesn't move in waves and cycles. Sound, light, everything. And you're not staying the same. If you're not challenging yourself, if you're not in some ways adapting, improving, integrating, belonging, you are isolating, alienating, moving, regressing, right? You're either moving up or down, in other words. For a lot of people, I think it's important to go in small steps, like have that first conversation with a teacher, right? Hand in that first piece of homework, write that first test, right? Baby steps. Or you can just show up on day one and just wander over to church in Wellesley by yourself and see one of the more pronounced identity groups in our culture, and just, take a big step, challenge step. But in either case, we need to be moving consciously towards that place of independence and autonomy, right? And ultimately towards helping others. So with that in mind, the last thing I just wanted to get your thoughts on today is where you're going next. You are more culturally integrated, more culturally mobile. You have growth mindsets, right? You are more ready to face challenges than the vast majority of people, whether they're your age or anyone else. Okay? It's like a superpower. You're about to head into your post-high school life, your post-secondary life, maybe college, university, travel, workplace, whatever. What are you going to do with your superpower? Right? What are the next things that you are going to face, and what do you look forward to most? Start with you, Mash.
I think I wanted to add what I found out during these 2 years, like how I also kind of outgrew myself, I would say. Also, when I just came here, I had this mindset that I don't want to talk in Russian because I came to Canada and I want to practice English. I want to know more international people. That's why I had an international company where Anya came in. And but the time passed and I figured that the culture is actually important. Like the place that you came from, it should stay somewhere in your heart. And for me, I would say right now I can define the culture as the common background that you have with the people from the same places. And I think that's also important to have somebody by your side who can understand you, for example, like more than Canadian person, because we grew in the different positions. And yeah, I'd say that started like getting into this more, and I had my really close friends. And after the second homestay, I was fine there, I was okay. But I felt like I can do more. Like I think that was the period of recovery and adjustment. Began there. The recovery was like completed. I was fine with what I'm doing. I knew where am I knew my position in life. I'm like, okay, I'm a student. I'm in a homestay. I'm doing this. These are my responsibilities. I have to do it. But I started thinking like, how can I make my life better? Not how can I adjust to the life level that I have, but how can I like improve it and do something better for myself. And as I said, I had friends like from my next to my city, which we were close to, and we started thinking about moving to apartments. Of course, it's because of the control. I very agree with what you were saying, that the freedom and the control that you have is important, because even in my 7th homestay I was not allowed to cook, and of course I had to talk to my homestay and tell her like what I'm doing in Braemar and stuff like this. And I just came to conclusion that I can do it by myself, and that I believe in myself. I believe that I'm gonna be fine. I trust myself that I'm gonna keep me healthy. Also, as like I'm a vegetarian, very important to have the balanced food.
Yeah.
And in the homestay, as Anya said, she's picky eater. I'm not a picky eater, but yeah, the food was questionable, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's how the adjustment began to me, when I started to get not only in the school life and not only inside the Braemar like cooking club and all the activities. I started to see what can I do for myself as a person who lives here, and I try to find the apartments, the realtor, all of these documents. Succeed.
Yeah.
I live in apartments now, which I'm very happy.
Man, if anyone knows anything about the Toronto real estate market, finding an apartment here is no small feat.
Yeah. And I live with my roommate. It's very nice. And I would say I wrote this topic down because I think it's very important for the healthy and happy lifestyle. But I believe you need to keep your life balanced. You have to. For me, it's 4 things. You have to do school. You have to take care of your home. You have to do sport, and you have to have a social life. And if one of these things are imbalanced, if one of those things you don't to take care of, for example, you don't do sports at all, like you don't have activity, your body and your mind, they're somehow connected, and you're just gonna feel bad. And when you're doing your studies, if you're like 24/7 you're studying, it just drains you mentally, and you have to have breaks into something else. And I believe life in Canada taught me that, because I was trying to like see what I want to do, what's gonna be good for me, and I figured that this lifestyle is what it works personally for me. I think it's very important to know what you want, to do what makes you happy, and to keep it healthy. And for me, balanced.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could say it 100 times, balance, right? I love this line. I think Einstein said it first. Life is a bicycle. We must move forward to stay balanced. It's well worth thinking about, but I couldn't have said it better than what you just listed. Balance the intellectual self, or the school self, the social self, the domestic self, the place where you live, your home, and your physical self, right? I'm not going to say anything more because you nailed it. That's if anyone is moving to a new place, whether it's a new physical place or just a new position in your life, maybe you got a new job, maybe you just lost someone, maybe you're changing relationships, whatever, the way that you're going to move through it and find the kind of control and agency that you've just described, Masha, is by finding your version of that balance. Spot on. Yammies, what's the future hold for someone like you who's adjusted so much and so successfully? How are you going to continue to use these strengths in the future?
So I believe like everything needs times. Like I feel when I feel proud for myself when someone asks me the direction or the address in the street in Toronto, and I know where exactly it is, and I was like, whoa. How did I know that?
It's a cool feeling, right?
Yeah.
I still get that sometimes. Yeah.
I was like, wow, I belong to Canada right now because I know where exactly where it is, and I feel really proud of myself that I improved a lot in mentally and physically. Yeah, and my advice to everyone that everything needs time to overcome it, to get used to it.
Give it time, patience, right? Yeah, be patient with yourself. It's beautiful advice. Anya, we've got balance, we've got patience with time. What else can you add? How will you use your strengths in the future, and maybe what final message do you want to leave for people who might be at an earlier stage in the journey than you are?
I think Canada, it was like a first but really big step in my and our lives. And it taught a lot, and also like a connection between culture and specifically Braemar College. We don't have any Canadians. We have only international students, but Canada, it's a mix of everything. So it connects. It's like we have a Canadian school, you know what I mean? Because outside of Braemar College, there are also only people from different countries all together mixed, and here's the same. Just for us it's new because we weren't born here, but it's the same. And like Braemar Canada prepared for so much, like losing people, friends. It's, I don't know, it's such a beautiful upgrade, like such a precious experience. Like I don't think something can prepare you for adult life more than what we are having right now. I'm not saying like something else is worse or something else is easier and we're such a cool and it's so difficult and blah blah blah. No, just like what I know, what I heard. Yeah, like Canada made me the way I am right now, and it helped me to see what I want to do in my life, what future can look like. And I'm telling you, like, I'm from Russia, from really little town, and like Toronto, it's a beautiful place. It's such, like, I didn't know so many things about not even life, about just the world. And Canada, Braemar, just, yeah, like, people around you, they're just influencing in you so much. Like, you're such a colorful person now. Like, your personality is such a colorful thing. And yeah, I just feel like all this spirit is magnificent. And as I told you, losing people, it's really sad. Like, you find them, they leave you, they're saying goodbye, and then you don't see them for a long time. Or you just lose them, and after that, nothing. It also prepares for the future. And yeah, I think it's really cool experience, and culture shock and everything. Like, I don't know, really cool. This just helps you for the future, I guess, in all aspects. Yeah.
So you would recommend it, regardless of the challenge and the discomfort?
I think the experience that international students in Braemar get, it's very unique.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I don't think that a lot of our peers would get to experience it, like, at all. Definitely not at the age that we are right now, like 17, all of us maybe.
Yeah. You imagine sitting down at a cafe with a group of new friends, and one of them says, "Oh, actually, yeah, I spent a few years of my life studying over there, and I've learned a few languages, and I know people from 27 different countries, and, no big deal." They're the most interesting person at that table, right? They're the one you want to speak to. Guess what? You're that person. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
Right? A lot of what we've said today is about self-awareness, right? About recognizing where you are in your life, who you are, what you could be, and what it's going to take to get there. And I want to say, in case you haven't said it to yourself, congratulations, because you have moved through something that we've already been over several times today, an enormous challenge, full of all kinds of different difficulties that only you could have dealt with in the way that you did. And you did it. And you're on your way to something better and new and cooler now as a result. I hope you stay motivated. I hope you continue to use the strength that you've gained for yourself to improve your life, make it more beautiful, make it cooler, but also to support those who haven't quite had the chance to develop those character traits that you have. Because you are now in that stage of autonomy and independence, and not everyone else is. Even people who were born here and grew up in the place that you're at, not everyone feels independent and autonomous, but you are, and you can make others the same. So that's my challenge and my hope for you, that the wonderful people you've become will lead others to become wonderful and strong themselves. For those listening, thinking about maybe making a move in their own lives, we hope that these experiences have brought some light to what that might look like. Encourage you to check out the original podcast with Mr. Dov Shapiro of Connect You. Encourage you to look at the podcast with Miss Annie Chan and Miss Olivia Carter, two of our English second language teachers. Talk a lot about the importance of engaging in the language of the new place that you're in and how important that can be, alongside all these other things we've talked about: staying in touch with home, right? Finding balance, being patient, etc. Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Yammies. Thank you, Masha. I know this has been a new experience in and of itself. You did amazing. You could start a podcast on your own if you wanted to. Maybe something to think about for the future. Any final words that you want to express to the listeners?
Thank you, Mr. Helsby, for inviting us.